Catfish are probably one of the most widespread and widely pursued fish in America. With that said, there's a lot of things that people do to make catching these fish more difficult. And in this video, I'm going to show you 5 things for you not to do so that you catch more catfish. I'm a charter captain. I take people fishing to catch catfish. And one of the big things I see with the inexperienced anglers is not keeping constant pressure on the fish. While it's simple in theory, if you let your guard down and don't keep that rod bent while you're fighting a fish, it gives the fish a chance to shake its head and throw that hook. Now, barbed hooks make that more difficult, but sometimes you can have a poorly hooked fish, a fish that is not hooked solidly, and that's all it takes is letting that rod go straight and poof, that fish comes off. Another situation is when fish start coming straight at you. This is a situation where you have to really reel fast, keep up with the fish, and keep the line tight and the rod bent. Now, mistake number 2 is using that reel as a winch and not a mechanism to take up line. What I mean by that is use the rod as your leverage and your power to bring in fish, and try to use the reel just as a mechanism to take up the line that you pull in. Lifting the rod, pulling line to you, and then taking it up with the reel puts a lot less pressure on your reel and the gears that are in it. It's also a lot less work on you as an angler. Now, a lot of people see this on some of the TV shows where they're fishing for tuna and they're sitting there pulling the line, grinding on the reel. That's a whole different class of tackle than what most catfish anglers are using. Many times anglers are actually overfishing the reels that they have. So limiting how much torque and pressure you put on those reels will mean they last you a lot longer. Now, as a charter captain, another big mistake I see people make is they see a rod go over, they pick it up, and then they go, oh, there's not a fish on it, and they put the rod down, relax, and let the line go slack. Many times what is happening here is that fish is either running straight at you and you don't feel the tension on it, or maybe it's running off to the side and you don't feel it pulling. That's why you'll hear me say many times, keep reeling, keep reeling. Here's the deal. It doesn't hurt to keep reeling. You probably need to check the bait anyway to see if the fish pulled the bait off. So when you get one and it pulls the rod over, you pull up on it, you feel it go slack or maybe not any pressure on it, keep reeling. Sometimes those fish are coming straight at you, and if you let off, it's a chance where maybe that hook is not set yet in that fish's mouth and it gets away. Another mistake that I see anglers making is how much time they spend in one location fishing. Now, most of this will apply to boat anglers because they have the freedom to move, but it can apply to bank anglers that have access to a lot of water. There's a fine line between sitting too long in a spot and not long enough. Now, it's easy to say if you don't catch a fish in 20 minutes, they're not biting, it's time to move, but you don't know how many times I've been out on a guide trip, we've anchored up somewhere, and it's 25, 30, 35 minutes into that spot before we start catching fish. Why is this? Well, a lot of times you roll into an area, you make some noise, you stir up some water. The fish, depending on their mood, may just hang loose for a little while and say, let's let whatever's going on settle down. Yeah, moving into the area, chunking baits into the water, throwing anchors out, walking up and down the bank, it can disturb what was quiet just a little bit ago. I like to give spots at least 30 minutes. 30 minutes is kind of my minimum if I'm in super shallow water where generally catfish are only there if they're feeding. And if I'm fishing some deeper water, I'll give it about 45 minutes, maybe even an hour in colder water temperatures. Now, how long is too long? And that's a tough question. One of my buddies that I fish tournaments with, he's a charter captain, Captain Chris Simpson, down on Clarks Hill Reservoir in South Carolina. One of the lakes we fished together was Lake Monticello in South Carolina, and his rule was you don't move until at least 90 minutes. In most places, 90 minutes is a long time, but he had experience there and knew that sometimes it takes that long for fish to bite. Generally, about an hour is a pretty good sit in one spot, and you're going to get a good feel as for whether fish are biting or not. Now, obviously, bank fishing, you may not have a choice. You may be limited to where you're at. In that situation, wait it out. The one thing about waiting it out is, well, sometimes you're there when the fish finally decide to start to eat. You know, a lot of times hopping places, hopping locations, you may have left and they started eating an hour later. So it's a tough question, but if you're wanting to move, you've got other places to go, you got other options. I think an hour is plenty of time. Now, out of the two, I think you are better off sitting for 2 hours than you are to move after 20 minutes. Your odds are going to go up the longer you're sitting there in one spot. Now, number 5 on my list is big bait equals big fish. This is not always true. As a matter of fact, my 2 previous personal best blue catfish, a 71 pounder and an 82 pounder, well, they were both caught on very small pieces of bait, while other rods had large chunks of bait out. If you're just trying to catch a fish, downsizing your bait, not using the biggest bait you can, is a good option to up your odds of getting hooked up. Now, if you're in an area and you're getting hammered by little fish and you just want to catch one fish, one big fish, put out a big bait. You don't have nothing to lose. If you're not getting bit with those big baits, it may be fish are just not feeding on large chunks of bait at that time. As with most fish, when they are targeting a specific size food, maybe a small threadfin shad or small gizzard shad, they get focused on that and they ignore everything else, and that is what they pursue. So if you got an area where fish are feeding on mussels, you probably don't want to be throwing out a gizzard shad as big as your arm. Again, the one guarantee with big baits is they will eliminate small fish. Now, these mistakes that I mentioned are all part of the learning process. The reason I do these videos is not to point out people and poke fun at them, but make folks aware of these things, because a lot of times when you're out there fishing, if you're not exposed to other people and other anglers, you don't know if what you're doing is right or wrong. So that's why I do these videos, to kind of show you, hey, this may be something that is leading to your problem. This may be something you can change to catch more fish, and it gives you a little more confidence the next time you go out fishing.